Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chasing Hazel's Tales, a family history podcast where we deep dive into our family history stories and discoveries. We discuss our friend DNA and share some of the great connections we have made. I'm Kim McLaughlin.
And I'm Laura Ireland. And just to remind everyone, Hazel was our grandmother. She had many facets to her history, and her full name should be Julia Hazel Hensler Lang Burgoyne. And 99% of her life was spent in Enfield, Maine, where we also grew up. Her son, Roscoe Burgoyne, was our dad.
Yeah, so now everybody kind of can catch up, and that's where we are. So we have some updates. We have some new connections.
Yay!
And we have some good stories. But the first update I want to say is that I went ahead and made the executive decision to hold off on Salvatore Nicolai's story until after the new year. We can all dream of Monte Fiascone, Italy, until then. It's a dream location, and maybe you should start booking your holiday now.
Yes, why not?
I think I could talk Andrew into that vacation again anytime. He'll be showing up soon, but I think it deserves a bit more detailed research to get it right. So, and his story, again, just like Hazel's, was very compelling. And I'll put some links on the show notes so everybody can check out Monte Fiascone and just dream a little bit. But if you want a place to go in Italy, there you go. That is a perfect spot.
And the second update that we have is we just spent our Black Friday gathered around a table, telling stories and learning about our new family. We call it the expansion pack, the Humphreys. We were graciously hosted by our cousins, Travis and Shauna Humphrey, and they facilitated a fun day of connecting and storytelling that brought our Hazel discovery full circle. So we were joined by our father's youngest half-brother, Tim, and his wife, Doreen, and our brother, Kevin, and a couple of my daughters. And that was a fun day sitting around and kind of retelling this story and speculating, about what life might have been like why things happened the way they did. I mean, there was a little bit of that, not a whole lot.
But still, getting to know each other and what each person brought to the table and to the story about what they knew.
Right, because we all do know like some different pieces of what happened along the way, at least in our lifetimes.
Right. And there was nothing else on the agenda that day except for that. And that was perfect.
Well, there was eating.
Oh, eating. Yeah. Crab cakes. Yum.
Delicious.
It's delicious. And one thing that Travis and Shauna have in their home is they have a genealogy of their house. And this just kind of this was exciting. So it's just basically a scrapbook with articles and a history of that house and its owners. And so it was there when they bought the house. So it's something that had been handed down, through time. And their house was built in 1804. But this scrapbook had all kinds of articles and pictures, but it even had wallpaper samples from...
That was great.
Wasn't it? I mean, the colors and the textures, and I don't think they're coming back anytime soon, but you never know. But they had to be 100 years old. And so what a nice idea to take a beautiful home and know its history, know who's been there, why that house was built, and all the other homes around. So there's a project for anybody who has an old home. My house is built in 1965, so I don't think I have much to tell, but I thought that was really cool.
It was, and I think part of it had to do with the fact, didn't she say that it was in the same family for a very long period of time?
Right.
And maybe that made it, I mean, but still, someone had the forethought to put all that in a book and write things down and, for future people, for us to, enjoy on our Black Friday.
That's right.
I
don't need to go shopping. I want to go see that.
Yeah, that was far more fun.
That was far more fun. Right.
Yep. But in doing all of this, what a huge impact this discovery has made, I think, on all of us, both sides of this story.
Right. And it was evident there while we were talking because, we've had a really positive experience. We've connected in a really positive way with people who are open and willing to learn about the history and to fill in the gaps.
And they're as interested in learning about Dad as we were about learning about their family.
Right.
It was fun to share the pictures and hear the reactions of, how many similarities he has to the different members of the Humphrey family.
Right. And at one point, so in the past year or so, I don't remember the date, I just made an observation to Tim, who is my uncle, and he doesn't necessarily resemble my father a lot, as much as some of his brothers do, but his hands, the genetics are clear. So when I would look at Tim's hands, I would see my father's hands, the exact same similarities. So, and then of course, I had to show everybody else, look at these hands. And we ended up taking a picture of all of them. And it was just, that connection is really quite fun too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think going through what we have with all of this and meeting these wonderful people, it's removed the uneasy feeling or, that unthought known. I feel just a sense of peace, really.
Right. Relief.
Relief, peace. I don't exactly know what to call it.
Yeah.
Glad to have the social family I was raised in, as well as these new findings with the biological family.
Right. And I think we could say that Uncle Tim has the same feeling. He was thrilled to meet the family and to connect, and especially, because there are just so many people that we just keep adding to the people that we've met. And I think that in the future we have a lot more to come. So
yes, hopefully,
as it just kind of gets more gradually introduced. But
right. And now Kevin has promised to cook for them. So I think it just got real.
Yeah. Kevin's our brother, and he cooks really, really well. He loves barbecue. We're holding him to it, and we'll keep you updated. And I don't know when we're going to nail him down next year, but I would think maybe a nice spring, a welcome to summer barbecue would be nice.
Right. And so now we know, our expanded family spans the state of Maine and beyond. But while we were sitting around that table, we did discuss a piece of county history, which is always intriguing. And Uncle Tim and his wife, Aunt Doreen, they live in the county. They raised their children there. So this is a fun part of the history, because also our father was involved in truck driving. So
right. Dad was a natural trucker.
Yes. And so this story involves the Haynesville Woods. And Haynesville is a town.
Dun.
I know we should have some mysterious music there.
There. I did my best.
All right. And so Haynesville is a town in Maine located in Aroostook County. If you're from Maine, it's just the county. No further explanation is needed. And this road, the Route 2A is what is known as I don't know, what is it known as?
Well, it runs through the Haynesville Woods.
Runs through, right? Okay,
right.
And
so 2A,
this road,
and it was the only road for a long time that went up that
got you to Holton,
right, from Bangor and anywhere else south.
Mm-hmm.
So it went up the eastern side of Maine, and it was the only one for a long time. And so the stretch of Haynesville there's a stretch of road that just, was
notorious.
The road was made from Haynesville to Holton to allow for the easy transportation of military supplies at first. It was completed in 1832. And so it goes through the Haynesville Woods, which is notorious for being haunted, but also probably for good reason. But
right. And it's also what became a major road for supply for all of the northern woods operations.
Right.
So not just military, but the Maine was just one big paper making machine back in the day.
Right.
And it started.
And potatoes.
And lumber too. I shouldn't say just paper.
Right. There were a lot of natural resources in northern Maine and western Maine that were being trucked through the Haynesville Woods and through that corridor, because there was only one at the time. So if you can imagine Maine, and on the eastern side, the Route 2A would go up into Bangor. It would, start somewhere near Bangor, but that the only roads were up the eastern side of Maine, right, kind of bordering with Canada. And if you imagine, the whole western side from there was all woods and farm, and there was not much civilization towards the west. But that's where all of our natural resources were that were then trucked south. So it was,
and I think sent along the river too.
Exactly. They
used the rivers for transport.
Right.
Oh.
So it was a major deal, and it was a very industrious happening going on there for
Mm,
hundreds of years.
right. Right. When Maine had a lot of jobs.
Right. So we want to talk about some of the stories that we talked about while we're sitting around the table. And whenever someone says the Haynesville Woods, now that you kind of know where that is and what it is, when people would drive through there and all these truck drivers and suppliers and people like that, they would come across these ghost stories and tell these ghost stories. And we're just going to relay a few of those. And it is through what they call the Haynesville Woods along that road.
Right. So, and we found a few websites that detail these stories pretty well. I got some information off of spookeats.com.
Yeah.
Unusual name, but they had the stories. It was pretty good. And so one of the stories is a young woman seen on the side of the road, and some travelers claim she's running along the side of the road, clearly in trouble, or she simply appears in front of the car crying and begging for help. When she's offered a ride, she tells people that she and her husband have been in a car accident and that her husband needs help. But when the driver reaches the end of the road, the woman vanishes, leaving only a chill in the air. And according to legend, the woman is a young bride on the day of her wedding, and she and her husband were in an accident in the woods where the husband was killed instantly, but she managed to escape the wreckage, and she wandered down the road and finally succumbed to the cold and froze. She froze to death.
Right. And then another tale focuses on a young girl who is also spotted on the side of the road. And when anyone stops to see if she needs help or they offer her a ride, they're shocked to find she just disappears without a trace as they begin to drive down the road. No one knows exactly who the child is, but according to reports, on August 22nd, 1967, two 10-year-old girls were struck by a tractor trailer and died while walking along the road.
So, and so there's a lot of legend of death and haunting and all that, but they're not just from car accidents. There's another legend that is very spooky called the Flesher Witch. And it has to do with the 1800s and a family by the name of Wilcox that living out in the woods. And they have a daughter named Annie who starts having these nightmares. And she complains of scratching at her windows, and her father could never find the source of the scratching. And over time, I guess it continues, and it gets much darker. She hears whispers at night, her blankets get ripped off, and she feels nibbles all over her body. And then this all culminates in a brutal attack and it leaves deep gashes on Annie's face. And the girl says that this is from an old woman with a face that looks like melted wax.
And I
So,
saw some other references to that movies have been done about something like this. And it's kind of, I think sometimes once you get the idea that someplace is haunted, all these stories pop up.
and
So
I think they just like add a little.
Right. They add a little, wow, I know that this was haunted. So we don't know anything about this story. I even tried to do a family tree of the Wilcox family. That didn't work.
Yeah.
That was just quick.
So it is reported that she's found dead in the woods by a group of hunters, and that she's found, I don't mean to giggle, but found beside the body of an old woman with a facial deformity, and the skin had been peeled off of Annie's face.
So yeah. Well, yeah. So that I just think people, it's just a good story. I don't know. I can't find anything to find out if there was a Wilcox family. There probably was, but that's all I know.
Right. Yeah. And then the rest of the family didn't fare so well either. According to the legend, the mother hanged herself, and two of her brothers died in a swimming accident. And then it says that the father was driven mad by grief. So,
Right.
And he disappeared into the Haynesville Woods and was never seen again.
Right. So the Haynesville Woods is really quite infamous, but yeah, I don't know about that one, but it does make for a ghost story, a spooky ghost story.
Oh, it sure does. I don't really like that.
So anyway, and then, we heard these stories about the Haynesville Woods. And so I said, well, I have, newspapers.com, and I wonder how many people have kind of perished on these roads. And so is it true, or are people just making up stories because it's actually just kind of a desolate road where there's not a whole lot going on between point A and point B? So the first thing I did was I just put in Haynesville Woods and looked up a few things. And of course, the first thing that popped up was, and I'm putting these in chronological order, in 1965 in the Bangor Daily, there was, oh no, I'm sorry, this is the Portland Press Herald. There was an article about a sad song, not so sad for the singer. Basically, it goes on to tell about Dick Curlis, who was a Maine country music legend, and he and his writing partner, Dan Fulkerson, wrote a song about the Haynesville Woods, and it's called Tombstone. And it became a country hit. Everybody loved it. It went all over the United States.
Except for the Tourism Council of Maine.
Yeah. Tourism Council of Maine wasn't really too excited about it because if it's a ballad and it's a mournful tale, and it tells about the icy, snowy stretch of road way up in Maine, and it's called, of course, the Haynesville Woods. And then they go on to say that there's a tombstone every mile.
Well, there would be. If there was one for every trucker lost in those woods, there'd be a tombstone every mile.
But people could look up that song and listen to it, and it's actually a very good song.
Or you could go listen to our cousin Travis perform it.
That's right. So Travis, who is very talented, plays that song quite often, and it's just a Maine standard, you might want to call it.
Yep.
So in the article, Dick Curlis says, and this was from January 31st, 1965, he says, "I have nothing against the Aroostook County, but if you're a trucker, a salesman, or even a tourist driving through Haynesville Woods at 1 or 2 or 3 a.m., it's not the most pleasant place to be in the winter." And so it says it's because of the geography, the people, and the season involved in this precise time, meaning truck drivers and others who appreciate the truth, but not, we hope, the tombstone bit. So basically he says, truckers will appreciate this song.
Yeah.
But as we said,
it was dangerous. There were times a lot of people had very bad accidents in that stretch of road.
And especially in the winter, because Maine, right? Maine in winter.
Mm.
But anyway, so that was one article that we found mentioning, the Haynesville Woods. And then there was, of course, shortly after that article came out about Mr. Curlis, the next thing was a letter to the editor regarding the Haynesville Woods. And this was in the Bangor Daily on the 25th of March, 1965. So just a few months later. And it says to the editor, "I would like to make a comment on the song A Tombstone Every Mile, which has recently made Dick Curlis so famous. Bully for him. But I came from Aroostook originally and often go up through there. The piece of road referred to as the Haynesville Woods is very familiar to me, and it is a beautiful piece of highway, certainly not a tombstone every mile highway. Sure, there have been accidents, but where haven't there been accidents?" So basically, she just goes on to say that that's not her experience, basically, that she doesn't think that road is really quite so dangerous, that there's accidents everywhere.
And maybe she only needed to travel it on days when the weather was good.
That's right.
Truck drivers don't have that option.
Exactly. They
go
point.
In all conditions. So
right. So
people's experience would be different.
Right.
So.
And I can't imagine. I mean, Maine in winter, no.
Yeah.
It's just a tough driving conditions. So, and also about that Dick Curlis song, we do want to mention again, Travis has been known to play that professionally out when he's out and about. Check him out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I have another article. So this one's still 1965. So we're talking about the same year that the song was a hit. This woman mentioned she didn't really like the song. She thought that it wasn't appropriate. And then here in the Evening Express, 21 May 1965, and I believe the Evening Express was in Portland, Maine. So it talks about a pair of Southerners who had perished in separate highway accidents in Maine. And basically it said that Isaiah Barnes was killed when a trailer truck ripped through the guardrails along the so-called Haynesville Woods section of U.S. Route 2A. And then it says the Haynesville Woods section is the basis of a popular ballad called A Tombstone Every Mile, which recounts the hazards of driving trucks along the 40-mile stretch between Mattawamkeag and Holton. So, there's that in the paper. And then in 1967, so this is just a few years later, the Haynesville Woods is mentioned in an article because they are celebrating a veteran driver who is recalling all of his experiences. He was an employee of Coles Express and had about 33 years experience driving and working for them. His name, let's see, was...
Didn't the Coles come from Enfield?
Yeah, Coles Express.
So there we go.
Very good point. So Allie Cole created Coles Express, and he was very generous in Enfield as well. So that's another Enfield name.
Yeah, I read that article that you're talking about, the driver recalling his experiences. It's a little freaky.
Yeah.
They didn't have floorboards in the trucks and driving in winter, and I just can't quite imagine the conditions that they drove through. So
Right. In his article, his name, so the driver's name was Clint Perry, and he lived in Levant. And so when they mentioned the Haynesville Woods, they asked him, were they as bad as legends say? This was the question they asked him. And he said, just as bad. The road was never graveled. One night in 1937, we went over the Woods Road and counted 58 trucks off the road due to ice. We made it slowly. Now they keep that stretch of road as good as any other. So that was his experience. And so he said, yeah, the Haynesville Woods, that stretch of road was pretty bad.
58 trucks is a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, must have been an ice storm of some sort, but yeah, ice there's nothing you could do.
Right.
But let's see. And then, so we talked about that ghost story about seeing a girl and 2 girls being killed. And I did find the article. I thought I did. Here it is here. So it was in 1967, like it mentioned, and from the Bangor Daily on 23 August 1967, they said 2 girls killed in road mishap. So 2 10-year-old Haynesville girls were killed when they were struck by a trailer truck. They said Melody Shorey, a daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Raymond Irish, and Janet Rouse, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Rouse, were struck by the trailer truck on Route 2A.
I can't imagine.
That's all it says. So that basis of that folklore, or the girls being ghosts, was true. So there were 2 children that were killed on the side of the road in the Haynesville Woods. So there we have it. And then we fast forward to 1980. And there's just another mention I have here. These are just quick finds. I didn't do any in-depth search, but these came up first. They were just talking about the truckers and their experience with the Haynesville Woods. This is Kennebec Journal, 26 March, 1980. And they were just talking about a Revolutionary War gravestone that is sitting beside Route 2A. It's 75 miles north of Bangor. Well, it had been toppled. And what they had said was by doing the road improvements over the years had brought that stone, really, that Revolutionary War stone, close to the road, and then some trucks hit it, or somebody hit it and toppled it.
Yeah, it must have become more unstable the closer they got.
Right.
No, but I think that they mentioned that statue or that memorial to the Revolutionary War soldier had symbolized for some people the 7 truckers that died in 11 weeks on that road.
Right. Okay, so that's a big deal too.
Yeah, it was almost like a monument for them, I guess.
Right. So people would see it and would remember
about all the people who had died.
Right. And then somehow the monument then became toppled. Whether it got hit, whether someone kicked it, that we don't know. They don't know what happened. So anyway, so that kind of comes to the end of our Haynesville Woods story, and we found it, it's just another piece of Maine that we just love, and it kind of connects to our family because a lot of our family comes from the county.
And we've certainly traveled those roads.
Yes. And matter of fact, one of the articles did say that through improvements in the road, people are now coming to Maine to go to the Haynesville Woods. So what used to be a negative for the economic development, now these stories and these folklores have now made it a positive because people want to come to Maine and see this stretch, and probably paranormal people as well, I would assume.
That's true. There's a huge component of paranormal, almost tourism, I would say, related to like the Bucksport area, the Haynesville area. A lot of people looking for those types of experiences. And like you said, I did read also about they realized pretty quickly that people from out of state were coming to Maine to find the Haynesville Woods. So that's,
just go north.
Yep. Just go north, you'll find it.
So during the pandemic, and my husband and I spent some time in the county, and I want to say, we love the county. I love being up there.
It's awesome.
It is beautiful. It is the people. There are no better people. I just love being there.
Can we plug Holton Farms butter?
And Holton Farms butter, there's a plug right there. And they have the best chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk, yeah.
But the reason we bring that up, so Andy and I went, and I specifically said, and this was before this all happened, I said, where are the Haynesville Woods? I said, you have to take me through that. So my husband had driven that stretch many, many times. And I said, you have to drive me through it.
Tim has as well, my husband.
Yeah. But of course, we went through probably at noontime. And it was like, yeah, what's the big deal?
What's the big deal, right?
Here we are, it's August, and yeah, everything's really, it is. So the thing is, the lady was right in her editorial to say, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. It's God's country. But, people have built it up to these really great stories. And I love it. I recommend everybody go to the county, enjoy yourself.
And be nice while you're there.
Yeah, be nice. Yeah. These people are great. But they, winter's coming and people love to go snowmobiling and all this other stuff. Great winter recreation. But a good folklore there every now and again. And so if you feel like it, give us a buzz at chasinghazelstales@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of the Haynesville Woods if you've ever been there. Do you have a story? Because we'd love to hear it.
We'd love to share some stories.
Yeah, because if we missed anything obvious, let us know.
And I think this is a good time, Kim, to give another plug to the Augusta Children's Home.
Right. The Maine Children's Home.org. That is where Hazel found herself after her mother died at 3 months old. And she ended up going to the Maine Children's Home where she was adopted by the family in Enfield. And the rest is history from there. But they have a wonderful Christmas program, and you can donate money. You can donate gifts. I think last year I went to Amazon, and they had lists of things that they were picking up for children, and I just bought the things on Amazon. But find out what you can do if you want, and give them a hand at Christmas. And as we wrap up this week's episode, we have one more thing. We would like to gift to a few people an hour's worth of genealogy research for someone that has never worked on their family tree before. Give someone the family history to think about and maybe share with others over the holidays. We will randomly pick 3 or 4 requests or more if we have time and work on them for the next few weeks. We won't do any DNA analysis or adoption cases. We won't make it public because that's for you to decide. And we can't do them all or promise results because genealogy is a funny thing, and it's possible to come up empty-handed or possible to find something upsetting. We send you the results via email for you to keep. You will need to provide details to get the ball rolling, such as names, dates, and places. So send us an email with your family history lines that you might like to hear about. Again, newbies preferred, and we won't be doing any DNA analysis. Send your request to chasinghazelstales@gmail.com. So that's chasinghazelstales@gmail.com. No spaces or anything funny there. And we will let you know how that's going when we talk next week. So again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.